Margaret. I'm with Charlotte Street Foundation, and I am one of the partners. Charlotte Street Foundation is one of the partners in the Rocket Relief Fund.
Hi, everyone. So nice to have you all join us today. My name is Adina Duke, and I'm with the Spencer Museum of Art at the University of Kansas, also a partner in the Rocket Relief Fund.
So just so everybody knows, if you're not already initiated about the Rocket Relief Fund, the Rocket Relief Fund is something that's coordinated between a few different institutions in our area and is largely initiated and funded by the Andy Warhol Foundation. ArtsKC is a partner, as is Charlotte Street Foundation and the Spencer Museum of Art. If you're already familiar with how the Warhol Foundation has been providing funds to our area for several years, that is through rocket grants through Charlotte Street Foundation and the Spencer Museum of Art. ArtsKC has been an arts funder in the area for many years as well, with our grants to arts organizations and to individual artists. And you may know of our individual artist grants, which are called inspiration grants. The Andy Warhol Foundation decided to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic by changing the way that rocket grants are distributed this year. Margaret or Adina, do you want to expand on that a little bit for people's general information?
Sure, this is Margaret. The Andy Warhol Foundation, as many of you know, has provided rocket grants, which are usually project-based funding for 10 years. Each year we've been distributing $60,000, usually in the form of 10 project-based grants. But this year the Warhol Foundation recognized that there was urgent need and that this was a good opportunity to expand our strategy just for this 1 year. So they authorized all of the regranting partners in the country, which is 12 now, to essentially reissue this award program as something more along the lines of a need-based fund to support artists who have experienced some kind of financial loss as a result of the pandemic. And it was at their suggestion that the awards were transitioned to a $1,000 grant. And then we are very fortunate to have had several additional funders and partners in this case join in that initiative to help us expand the reach, both in terms of the number of artists and the ability to kind of reach people who might be outside of our normal purview.
And who else? Oh.
Well, to better inform everybody on the call, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to walk you through the information on the Rocket Relief Fund page and do a sample application on Call for Entry, which is the platform that we're using to accept applications. So I'll go through this as smoothly and as quickly as I can. You can jump in with questions if you like, but also it might be worthwhile to wait till the end of this section for questions. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we are. And here we go. Can everyone see my screen? Who's got their audio on?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Okay. So this is the Rocket Relief Fund page on the charlottestreet.org website. If you are just coming to that website, you can find it under their awards dropdown. Oh, it's not, it's fighting me. So you can find that right here also under their main menu where it says Rocket Relief Fund. As you can see here, and as you may have already read, the funding available is $120,000 for artists impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, and you can see more information there. For those of you who are on the phone, I am looking at charlottestreet.org/awards/Rocket Relief Fund, and we can provide a link to that on our Facebook page. The grants are going to be for $1,000 for each of the people who are chosen to receive a grant. There's more information on the page, and as I scroll past it, there's some buttons here for call details right here in a PDF, and also a button for Apply Now Online. There's a lot more detail here about how this funding came together, where it's coming from, and the process of funding. Some quotes from our leaders who are very much behind this effort. And then the eligibility requirements. And if you've worked with me before in applying for a grant, yeah, you know, I'll tell you, go through that carefully and make sure that you are an eligible person. This is specifically for artists. And there is some definition about the types of artists here. It's very broad ranging though. Most likely you will fit in one of these areas, and there's some description on what we mean by each of these things. And then it outlines some of the information that will be required in the application so that you can prepare it before you start filling out your form, such as a CV or a resume, a link to your online presence, which might be a website, a professional Facebook page, or even perhaps a link to a public event that you were in. It might be the event listing or a review to that event listing, just as long as it's verifiable that you were part of it, like your name is listed on it. And you'll be asked to submit a short narrative about your loss of income. You can also choose to submit a short video instead of writing a narrative. It can be up to 2 minutes long. And if you go that route, then you would need to create that video and put it online. And you can make it password protected. You can make a password protected Vimeo or YouTube video, and then include the link and that password in the narrative field. So that is an option. Part of what we're interested in with this has to do with loss of income or reimbursement for travel expenses related to creative work you paid for yourself, and some other things that are listed here. So I would read this section very carefully before you apply. There's information about the institutions involved further down here. If you're unfamiliar with any of them, you can learn more here and go to their websites. There's a great deal of partners in our community who were willing to be outreach collaborators. We're very thankful to them. You may have heard from one of these collaborators to be on today's call or to hear about this opportunity. There's several arts centers, regional arts councils like ArtsKC, and the theaters and other types of organizations listed here, and you can learn more about them here. So scrolling back up to the top, you can find that application button again. Here we go. It's white with a red outline and it says Apply Now Online. So if you go ahead and click on that link, it directs you to this opportunity on callforentry.org. If you're not already familiar with callforentry.org, it's not too different from a lot of other application platforms. ArtsKC uses one called Foundant. You might be familiar with Zap or Submittable. This is just another one of those. It's just as easy to set up a login on this as it is on any of those other platforms. So it should only take a minute or so. So I'm already logged in and it's showing me this call on the callforentry.org page. It says Rocket Relief for anybody who's on the phone and listening. It has a green Apply Now button. And here there's a repeat. This is just copied information from what was on the Charlotte Street page. So if you already reviewed all of this carefully on the Charlotte Street page, then you should be good to go. And if you're ready to apply, then you can click Apply Now, and it will take you into the form. It asks you to review some rules and terms regarding responsibility. Go ahead and click Agree. And so now we're in the form, and it asks for some pretty standard things. And since this is a test application, I'm just gonna dummy my way through this. I'm gonna use ArtsKC's address. And I'm walking us through this because we know that some of you may have questions about how to apply. This is an online only application. There is not a paper application available for this opportunity. The staff of the partners, we're all working remotely, and so there's not an efficient way to for us to process paper applications for this opportunity. And we do want this opportunity to get that support to you as soon as possible. Part of the basic information they request is the county that you primarily reside in. That's tied to the address that you listed. ArtsKC is located in Jackson County, so that's what I put there. If you're not sure what county you're in, you can Google it pretty quickly. You must be over 21 to apply for this opportunity, and you cannot be a full-time student. It asks you to choose your artistic discipline. And as an individual, I am a visual artist. However, that is pretty broad ranging. If you look at this, there's a number of things that are included in that definition, and they're listed here for you to find where you fit. For those on the phone, the other options are theater artist, dancer or musician, and then the last one is performative storyteller, poet, or spoken word artist. And so there's some further definition there. Just for the purpose of this test application, I'm going to say I'm not a part of the staff of ArtsKC, although of course I am. But that's included here in part just for us to be clear with you all that this is not an opportunity that's open to any of the staff members of the partners. If you're chosen for this grant, you must be able to provide a W-9 and social security number or an individual taxpayer identification number, which is an ITIN, if you're selected for the grant. And so for this part, you don't have to provide that right now, but you do need to check a box saying, yes, I can provide that. There's some little question marks in the form that are orange, kind of mustard orange, that explain some of these questions, so you can always look at those. So the next section is where you provide a link that demonstrates your status as an artist. And we already had a question from one applicant who said, oh, is this only open to people who have their own website? No, yeah, you can list your own website if you have one, but if you have a professional Facebook page that shows that you use for your artistic practice, or if you have a different type of art presence, like a professional blog, or if you've got a link to a public art event where you're listed as one of the participants, all of those things can count because this is just a verification step in our application. So again, since this is a dummy application, I'm just listing artskc.org with our staff listing. The next section includes some boxes to check, and you can check more than one. And these are to help us understand your circumstances. I'm not going to read them all through here. There's about 7 of them, but these are to describe your situation, such as the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on my life has included. The first one is cancellations. Next, there's I am a teaching artist that could not teach or receive pay from a teaching job during this time because of canceled classes and school closures. The next ones are about travel expenses, losing full or part-time income, losing ability to work due to caretaking duties, increased costs due to unexpected coronavirus-related health care for myself or an immediate family member, and then other. If you're choosing other, please just write those details in your narrative. So just to get through the application, I'm going to choose the first one, but as you can see, you can choose more than one. The next section is the narrative. This is where some detail that may not fit in the form can go. If there's some more information that just isn't a box you could check about what's going on during this time for you, this is where to put it. It is relatively short. It can be up to 300 words. Just to get us through, I'm going to just put something in that box. There's another section here to help us understand your circumstances that put you at additional financial risk, such as not having a financial safety net, such as savings. If you're a single parent, if you do not have health insurance, and so on. And again, you can choose more than one box in this section. There's more questions in the application that are related to your personal demographic characteristics. These are being collected so that we can better understand who is applying, but your answers to these questions do not change your eligibility in this selection for a grant. So I'm just going to work through these and choose some characteristics that are personal to me. And these, like I said, these are optional. You can choose to receive some more information from the partners on this project by joining their email newsletter lists. So there's a little section there. And then just so that we can keep learning, how did you learn about this opportunity? If you'd like to provide some testimony about your experience, you can. And as we write here, we might use this to show more need for more funds to help us raise more. So that's what this last box is for. At this point, you can hit save. You do need to get this far in the application to save a draft. It might stop you and say that there's some required items marked in red, which is what just happened to me. You do have to scroll through and kind of find those. Okay. So this time it stopped me because it wants me to add some work samples. So this is a need-related grant. This is not a merit-based grant, but the platform cafe.org just insists that we have some media in our online portfolios. And it's explained in the call for applications that this does not have a bearing on your application. It's just a technical part that's required. So if you are a visual artist, of course you can add some of your images. If you're a performing artist, you can add your headshot or images of your performances. But because this part doesn't necessarily matter, if you're a performing artist putting in your headshot, you can put in your headshot 5 times, the same one, that's fine. So I'm going to take you through that really briefly. I have some dummy images ready to go. You do have to put in 5. So here we are in my portfolio. I know I've been dominating the call. Can everybody still hear me and see the screen?
Yep.
All right, great. So here we are in the My Portfolio section. If you're new to Cafe, the My Portfolio section is where you can save images and media for future applications as well. You have to do them one at a time. I have some images ready to go right over here. As you can see, I've got some cats. Test cat 1 through 5, and that's what I'm going to be uploading.
Heather, while you're uploading that,
Yeah.
I
I did want to say that it does not accept YouTube videos. So all
Oh,
videos that have to be uploaded have to be kind of from your phone or in another format. And so as a spoken word artist, that was what I was going to be uploading. But I was concerned about the images in relation to the grant. And I read through everything, but I felt like it wasn't clear. So I just kind of shot my shot in that sense. And so that's just something to consider because I'm not coming from the visual arts standpoint.
so it wouldn't allow you to, just put the link to the YouTube video in there?
Oh, it says it doesn't accept YouTube links. But so I had to upload phone videos that I had to try to get the other images. Yeah. So I don't, and that's just what happened several times. And I did mine from my phone because because that's where my videos are, and so and a little
Yeah.
easier to. So yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about that. Is this Natasha? It sounds like you.
It is. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself first. Hello, everyone.
Okay. Oh, it's good to hear from you. I'm glad that you're on today. Well, we can look at that. We can see what we can do about that. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I am testing this only with images right now. Sorry, this upload section was. I tested this part on a different computer, so sorry about that. Hang on.
Hey Heather, it's VTran.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Natasha, don't get hung up on the work sample thing just because Heather said previously this is not a merit-based grant. This is literally just because the way that Cafe is set up, it says upload media. So don't worry about uploading your YouTube videos. You can put the in the earlier section where they ask for links. This upload media thing is just a perfunctory thing. That's what Heather was saying about just upload photos of you performing. And you could even just do the same. Yeah. Is that the hang up that you were worried about?
Well, that was a concern that I had, most definitely. I still applied and I still did everything. I mean, because I'm not going to let anything stop me from that. But it wasn't clear that I didn't see it or I didn't pick up when I read that, hey, this is just kind of a thing that you have to do. It definitely made it feel like if this part needs to be complete. And I was like, oh, this feels more focused towards visual arts, which I figured it would be because so much of it is that way. I mean, there's very few that's like, oh, this is for poetry. So,
yeah, I got you. So maybe from the Rocket Fund and maybe add some verbiage to clarify on the front end when we're applying that, hey, don't worry about it. This is not a work sample section. Just upload the thing because that's what Cafe requires. I've applied for other grants through Cafe and that's what those granting organizations said. It's like, hey, if you're a performer, this is not, you don't have to put your painting here and price and size, et cetera, et cetera. I literally put VTran, headshot required thing. It's an 8x10. It's worth $20,000. You know, my headshot is worth $20,000. You know,
right? And that's not clear. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for bringing that to us at our attention. I'm gonna finish moving through this really quickly. So after you have added your first image, then to add your second image or other work sample, whatever it is, you go here to where it says actions, and then you click on upload media to add your next one. This really confused me when I was first doing a test application, and it just isn't that intuitive on that part. So I'm just going to finish putting in test cat 2 here. You do need to put in this information about the artwork itself, and it really, as you can see what I'm writing here, I'm just keeping it really simple, fairly fictional. It's worth $1. I made it in 2020. It's a photo. It's fine. It can be. You just fill out those, you know, as much as the system needs, because again, it's just a basic technical thing. So I've done 2. Officially,
Heather.
you need 5. Yep.
This is Margaret, and I'm wondering, do each of the images need to have a different name? If they were all titled Test Cat, or if you tried to upload the exact same image 5 times, would it work, or do we know?
I think it would work. I didn't test it that way though. Okay, so I've got 2 in there now. So as soon as you got 5, then you're done with that part of it. And then to get back to your application, go to My Cafe Entries right here. And here you can see that I have started an application for Rocket Relief, and then go to complete it. It saved all of the things that I typed in before. It shows the work samples that you uploaded. You have to check a box under them to show that these are the ones that you're attaching. And if your samples were audio or video, this is where you would select those, just below that. And then save application is the one that's open to me right now, but if I had 5 there, then it would offer me the option to submit this. So it's stopping me right now because there's not 5. So I believe you get an email that says you submitted an application for Rocket Relief. Margaret or Adina, do you know if you do? I think you do.
Yes, you do.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Natasha.
You do.
So there's a basic walkthrough, everybody, for how to apply to Rocket Relief. Do we have some more questions about how to do this?
This is V. I have a heads up. I have a heads up for the media upload section as well. You might get an error message if your pixel rate or dimensions don't meet the requirements. So just don't stress. Just choose another image or resize that image to the correct dimensions, the minimum dimensions that they want, if you know how to do that. That's all.
There's a free resource for that, resizeimage.net. I'm gonna share my screen again really briefly to show you all that. I've used this many times when especially when I was on a computer that didn't have Photoshop. And I'll include a link in the chat. Here we go. So here you can upload an image, and you can crop it, you can rotate it, resize it, some other options, and then you just need to choose one of these buttons down here for the process that you're doing at that time. More questions?
Hi, it's Natasha again. I read in an email that came out today, it was talking about reapplying or applying up until April 24th. I just wanted to be clear. They were saying that all applications can be reapplied up until April 24th. It said reapply, so that's why I had a question about that.
Well, the initial application that if you applied last week, then it's in the consideration from last Friday's deadline. After each weekly Friday deadline, your application stays in the pool for consideration. You do not have to reapply. Cafe only allows you to apply once. So if your circumstances have changed during the period in which we're offering this opportunity, then it would be best to email us. Adina, what's that email address again to reach the team? I can find it really quick. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
It is rocketrelief@charlottestreet.org.
Okay.
And to speak to your question, the first deadline to be in the first lottery drawing is this Friday, the 24th. And then you'll stay in the lottery if you're not selected for that first drawing.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
We are developing a frequently asked questions list to go with this. And as soon as we've got that available, we will attach that to the information that's on Charlotte Street's website and make that clear to everybody. If you have questions for us, you can email us at rocketrelief@charlottestreet.org, and we will make that available to you as soon as we've got that. Say, Margaret, we have a question from Derek about how the lottery works. Would you be willing to speak to that?
Sure. Using an algorithm. So the lottery will be selected by the computer using an algorithm that randomly selects from all of the entries in the pool, and it is a weighted system. So the algorithm itself factors in greater need for a greater likelihood of selection.
Wow. I think that I think that this method is really new to a lot of people. If there's follow-up questions, we welcome them.
Yeah, this is Tim Marks. I have a follow-up to that. You said it's weighted based on greater need. Can you explain what greater need, how that's measured?
We are measuring it from the content of the applications, and we are considering that information within the context of each application and then comparing those applications to each other.
Okay, so it's not just a numerical number of how much money has been lost, or nothing that simple?
Unfortunately,
Okay.
no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any artists on the call who are not sure if they will be eligible? Do you have questions about eligibility? In this like virtual time, there's so many kind of long pauses and silences, aren't there? Do we have any other questions about Rocket Relief that we can do our best to answer?
A question, I'm just referring to the chat, and it says after each week, all applicants are automatically reapplied for the next drawing. Does that include the winners as well?
That's a good question. You're right. Those who were just chosen to receive grants in that week they are not in the pool any longer for consideration. So that's a good clarification on that point.
I just have a question. Maybe it's even a suggestion, and excuse it if it's bold, but I was wondering about the randomness of it, because because everyone has need, and I'm just wondering about if there are kind of like, we want to meet so many people in this area, so many people in this area, so many people for the randomness, and I'm using that in quotes. Do you all set up the algorithm for that, or have you just simply given a numerical number to each of the needs? Because I know that can also happen in random selection in quotes as well.
So I'll start by saying that we modeled our system after a national funding strategy called Artist Relief, which is sort of a partnership among some of the largest national artist funders and human services funders in the country. So that's really where we took many of our cues in terms of how to develop it. And the types of financial needs are not weighted differently. And to the extent possible, and also the narrative relates to financial need will only be used as we check, as we confirm eligibility of the application. We won't have a human being reading and then assigning some level of value to the narratives around the financial loss.
That's at artistrelief.com or .org.
.org, artistrelief.org. That is a national emergency fund, and I have checked, and as far as I can tell, artists in our area can also apply to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Another person asked a question, if we will be informed after the 24th if we are not selected.
The answer is yes. The first notification will happen on May 1st, if I'm remembering correctly. So Margaret and Heather, correct me if I'm remembering incorrectly. And then each week we will send an update email to the people who remain in the pool to let them know that, yes, you are still in the pool.
Do we know how many people have applied so far?
We have received a lot of applications already. We hadn't actually discussed before this call if we would be revealing that, to be brutally honest. But there's a lot of need, definitely.
I will just add that we are actively fundraising for additional funds. So if we do receive additional funds, those will be added to the pool, and either more awards will be drawn weekly or it may be extended, but any update to the fund will be announced publicly.
And that's 10 a week that would be selected?
Yes.
I
One
have
more
a
question.
Given that this virus affects brown and black people, more than the general population, is there any consideration that funding will go to these marginalized communities, in, I guess, concert with those infection rates?
At present, we are relying on the weighted lottery system, which effectively does take into consideration some of the greater needs. We aren't currently applying funds based on race or gender, and also those fields of the application are not required, but we do expect that the weighted lottery system will take into consideration some of the factors that address variations in need.
I have a question as far as the 10 a week. What is 10 a week versus all at once, or how does that, how and why is that the case, just from an administrative perspective?
Margaret, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we're following Artist Relief's lead on that. Or they're doing that the same way, aren't they?
Well, that again relates on some level. Artist Relief is actually extending theirs over a 6-month period. And that relates again to an interest in providing some levels of equity and access. We know that it will take longer to reach communities that are outside of our immediate circles, whether they are communities with less access to the communication strategies we're using, rural communities that are within the 80-mile radius, or communities that haven't traditionally connected with one of the 3 agencies that are partnering to administer. So as much as anything else, we hope that the extended distribution period allows us to impact a broader demographic, if you will, and a broader geographic group.
We have a question about the algorithm and the weighted system again. We've got this question. The information in the application, like we looked at those boxes to check about your financial situation and also about your circumstances related to COVID-19, and those are the areas that we will be looking at, as well as the narrative. So this is both a human and a algorithm process. We've used about 3/4 of our time on the call today about this topic, and we're happy to continue to answer any questions that people have about Rocket Relief, or if you have any questions about ArtsKC's programs or Charlotte Street Foundation's programs, or of course the Spencer Museum of Art. So please feel free, but if you are feeling like we've covered this well enough for you, then we can shift the conversation to some other topics that are pressing for you this week.
If you don't mind, I'll mention one quick note, which is that the fastest way to get questions answered, should you have any, is to go ahead and use the Rocket Relief email. If you have relationships with members of the staff of any of the organizations, we will each likewise forward any questions to the Rocket Relief email. So please direct to that, both so that any one of us doesn't stand in the way of you getting a swift answer, and so that you can rely on the expeditiousness of that specific email address.
Thank you. Not to end the conversation, but just thank you all for answering the questions and being transparent. I just think that it's important to note that many times artists and marginalized groups feel that funding is not random, and that it's not necessarily spread out across disciplines. And so, of course, we know that that can be real or imagined, but these kinds of calls help to answer those questions. And so that was why I had so many of them. I am just curious that with the need that is so immediate, why are organizations rolling out so slowly when, we've been on lockdown since the middle of March and they're rolling out May and for the next 5-6 weeks? I'm just curious about that.
Go ahead.
I'll say for one, you bring up a very good point, Natasha, about funding across disciplines, and part of Charlotte Street and ArtsKC and Spencer Museum's goal was to ensure that we had the capacity to fund artists of all disciplines. which was one of the initiatives that held us up for a couple of weeks, but also developing a model that's outside of each of our conventional practice forms, and ensuring that we had the expertise to do it in the expertise from outside of our organizations to do it in a fair way. But I appreciate that feedback, and the extended distribution really is intended, hopefully, to allow us to reach more artists from those marginalized communities, with this, at least to open up the chance, rather than to distribute very quickly within the people who have immediate access.
I would just add to that all of our organizations connect with artists in different ways, and there are many artists that we probably haven't connected with. So making sure that it's not only reaching the people that we're already currently engaged with, but rippling outward to those that might know about it later.
The word is definitely out, which is great. I see it on a lot of different places, Facebook groups, artists sending to other artists. So I'll just speak for myself and say that it's been beautiful to watch artists look to try to get others to apply, which ultimately could be competition, but how this beautiful community across disciplines has all come together. And you all have definitely done a great job of getting the word out.
Thank you. I really adore that about artistic communities. There is a lot of generosity and altruism between us, and it's I think that it's really excellent, and it's also related to the honesty that's crucial from funders and crucial from applicants, because we trust the information in your applications, and we must rely on that in our relationship with you.
I will add one quick note that I know that many of you, while some of the narrative won't necessarily, it will 100% not be tied back to any individual, and won't factor into the randomized selection process, but that your stories, which you're so generous to share in this process, will help us in our ability to hopefully recruit additional funders by being able to communicate the way that this situation has impacted you. So we are very grateful to you, and we will hold closely the value of the stories that you're sharing with us. But please know that we will use your work for good.
This is about Charlotte Street Foundation. Will you be doing any online exhibits?
You know, we will. We are learning, just like many of our colleagues in the art community right now, and we'll be adapting to whatever platforms we can reach our audiences in the coming months. So while we hope that at some point we'll get to see you in person, in the meantime, you will see some online presence in changing ways over the next few months.
About the Rocket Relief Fund grant, again, this is Heather Beffa. If you have trouble with the application form, or if you have further questions, like we've been saying, or if you're just stuck and you're not sure how to proceed, then please send an email to rocketrelief@charlottestreet.org. You can also reach out to me, Heather Beffa at artskc.org, and I'll do my best to help you as fast as possible. And hopefully also the extended granting period, the weekly granting period, will keep the opportunity available to somebody who maybe gets stuck in the application form, and can't get that resolved until the next round. So that's another reason we're doing this way.
I could just add, because this hasn't been announced yet, but we are going to do another info session like this next week on Tuesday, the 28th at 3:30 p.m., just in case people couldn't make it at this time or this day of the week. So that will also be pushed out through our various websites and social media and other channels. Additional questions, or if you have artist friends who weren't able to make it today, please join us next week as well.
Well, I think that we've covered rocket relief funds pretty well, and we've had some really great questions. We have a little bit more time until 2 o'clock. Does anyone want to raise any more topics before we wrap up today? Well, if you have resources that you want to share with the group, please feel free to email them to me, Becca@artskc.org. You can also tag ArtsKC on any social media platform to try to reach our audience. We will have another ArtsKC Listens Artists call next Thursday, getting back to regular scheduling. At that point, when we can all connect and talk about how we are going virtual, how we're hanging in there, and also about challenges that are facing us. So I really look forward to hearing and seeing you all again then. I'm really thankful to be working with Margaret and Adina and our other excellent professionals on the Rocket Relief Fund. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm really glad to have included all of you listeners and callers today. So let's wrap up, and I hope you all have a great afternoon.